So if you're new to the day, Kim and I have done 2 sessions this morning. We're doing 2 this afternoon. I'm Dan Harrelson. I am a senior technologist with Adaptive Path. Kim Lennox over here, senior interaction designer with Adaptive Path. If you're not familiar with the company, sorry if you've been here for the last 2 sessions, but I'll give a quick recap. We're a user experience consulting firm. We design terrific user experiences for our clients. We work with them, in the mobile space. We help to make products that are web-based, software products, all that sorts of thing, always with a user-centered design methodology. How we go about doing that is kind of what we're talking about throughout the course of the day. This morning, if you weren't with us, we touched on design strategy. How do you come up with the strategy on what is it that you're going to be designing? What is it that your product is going to be? Looking at business opportunities that you can go and tackle. We looked a little bit at the process of ideation. How do you come up with constructive brainstorming to figure out all of the great ideas that, by the way, the house lights up here are off if we want those on. So how do we come up with all kinds of great ideas? This afternoon, we're doing 2 more sessions that build on this morning. First, we're going to talk through information architecture. How can your content of your website, of your web application, be used to better serve your users? And then after that, we're going to dive into our last session of the day, looking at all of the different design methods, all of the methods and the tools that you could use in your disposal, tackling a good user experience and determining which are the best ones to use in any given case. So to start off with, I wanted to do a quick deep dive into some definitions around information architecture, simply because I think that there might be some misnomers out there. There might be some misconceptions, especially given the audience that we do have here at MIX, with a lot more developers than maybe Kim and I are used to speaking to. In information architecture, back in 2001, around the time that these 2 guys formed Adaptive Path, was kind of a catch-all, in a lot the same way that Webmaster was a catch-all in 2001 for anybody who built a website. Information architecture was a catch-all for anybody who designed a website.
So I was considered an information architect.
I don't think you're on.
Go. I'll turn myself on. There we go. So I used to be considered an information architect, but I never personally considered myself that. That's what I was labeled, even as early as, or as late as 2004, when I worked at Samsung. I was introduced all the time as an IA. And I work with IAs. I never did the information architecture. The stuff that I did was interaction design, and I work in concert with the information architect and the engineers. So it's this thing that we just wanted to clarify, that information architecture used to be this big thing, and now it's a lot of separate disciplines. A lot of separate disciplines have come out of information architecture.
Yeah, I mean, the point we just want to get across is that the way we see the world is such that information architecture is actually splintered a bit from where it was, 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, into all of these different roles. Information architecture itself has been refined into primarily something like this. How do we structure and organize all of our content, all of the information that is on our website, that is in our web application? If anybody in the audience is an information architect, this is your Bible, the Polar Bear book, Rosenfeld and Morville, Information Architecture for the World Wide Web. This is how they defined it. This is really what we're talking about when we say information architecture. So if anybody here, just putting that out there, if anybody back in your company has someone that you call an IA and maybe they're doing wireframes and they're doing visual schematics and that sort of thing, that's generally not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the people who are working on building up taxonomies, controlled vocabularies. How do you organize and structure and label all of your content? This is a diagram from Jesse James Garrett's Elements of User Experience book, where he kind of has these different planes identifying, what are the different roles of web design. Information architecture, you can see, is right here on the structure plane, where you're looking at, what is the structure of the site going to be.
And so you see, as I mentioned, I work in partnership with the information architect. They come up with the structure, and then I come up with the interaction model, and we work back and forth. We collaborate, and we collaborate with the visual designer as well, because the information hierarchy is just as important as the interaction, which is just as important as the visual design. So we all work together. It isn't just one, well, sometimes it's one person doing all of that, but for larger projects, you have one person working on each aspect of it, collaborating together.
Okay. Another way that you can look at information architecture is the intersection of these three things. You got your context, you got your users, and you have your content. Context, by that we mean the ecosystem in which your website lives, your web application lives. What is the marketplace that it's in? How is it being used by your users? That sort of thing. The users, of course, are the people behind the screen, and the content is everything, all the information that bubbles up, and that really is the core of your app. Today is part of a larger UX intensive workshop that we do. It's a 4-day intensive workshop. We can't tackle everything. Today we're going to look at these two areas. We're going to look at a couple ways that we can better organize the information of our website, to address our users and to address our content.
So when you look at it broken down into a top-down and bottom-up approach, there's the top-down is the main hierarchy and working through to find the right pages and going from the very skin of it. And then the bottom up is actually the back end stuff, the data, right? And it's either metadata or it's tags. And so what we're going to focus on right now, again, because this is just a subset of a full day, is just on the metadata and the tags and what's the difference between those and how can you actually leverage those things for your websites.
So this is a quick, funny example of metadata. What if we were to go around our world and label things, and label everything? Because essentially that's what we're talking about when we're talking about metadata, is assigning information to things. More often than not, we're really used to doing this in a digital space. I mean, I'm sure I'm preaching to many people here who understand, metadata, how it lives inside of a site, how it lives inside of databases, how all that kind of stuff works. But it can be bigger than that. We have an example here of a card catalog, the Dewey Decimal System, been around forever. That is a mechanism to assign metadata to a book. We're doing it so that people can walk into a library, go to a uniform construct, be able to find the book that they're looking for, and take it home with them. This is all of the metadata that somebody would need to use in order to properly find a book, an author, a category, an ISBN number, a location of what stack it's in if it's in the library.
And the other example is something as simple as an avocado. This is an avocado or the description of the avocado from the Berkeley Bowl in the Bay Area. And, Berkeley is all about hippies, and I live in Oakland right next door. I go to the Berkeley Bowl, and we don't just have one type of avocado. We have like 5. And so we have to provide they have to provide the metadata for their specific users. So their users care whether it's from California, grown locally, or whether it's from South America. I'm not going to do something from so far away, right? The users are really focused on very specific things. So they have written these cards for their users. So there's organic or conventional or all of these different ways. So when I go to look as a consumer at the avocados, I can pick and choose based on what I want because I'm picky. I'm from Berkeley. I'm a picky person. And it really matters to me where it's grown and whether it's organic or not. And that's the key with this type of stuff is there's metadata everywhere. And we just need to leverage it where it's appropriate for the user.
So why are we doing this? I mean, why are we bothering to go through and organize all of our content, tag it, just describe it in all these ways? Well, it's because ultimately we want our users to get to it. We want them to be able to browse through and find it. You know, maybe we're talking about an intranet, and we just need to have some mechanism for organizing all of the content across our intranet. You know, it's for search. It's being able to find what you're looking for. The best example I have for why we're doing this is for content reuse. I love that. I love that we can properly associate data about content, about things, about, you know, very atomic levels of information, and be able to reuse it, you know, in a website, syndicated off to a partner site, be able to pull it up on a mobile browser, be able to use it in all these different ways without having to redo it over and over and over again. You know, look at BBC and what they do. They create tons of content. The BBC is always churning out content in audio. They're turning it out in text. They're turning it out in imagery. You know, that content lives across hundreds of different web properties. It's available through mobile devices. It's available via a podcast on your iTunes store. They can't do all that. They can't possibly, you know, drink from that fire hose of content unless they properly put in the structures ahead of time, identify how are they going to need to organize their information, how to structure their information, such that they can get all that power out of it.
So speaking of that, this is Epicurious. And so they've organized things, again, for the user. That you look at it and there's, you know, what am I going to be cooking? So there's the main ingredient, or there's the preparation method. Maybe I want to bake something tonight, or do I want to, you know, have something braised? And, you know, you look at it, and they've structured the information in such a way that it's appropriate for the user. There's all this data to choose from, but how do you organize it? Well, you organize it in a way that's meaningful to the end consumer. So the other screens that we have are, you know, say, here's a use case. I bought a wok. So what am I going to want to do? I'm going to want to use this wok, and I'm going to want to maybe cook some Chinese food. So I'm going to want to get some Chinese food recipes. And when I look at the Chinese food recipes, then I can kind of, you know, pick and choose. Do I want a vegetarian? Do I want to add some, you know, poultry to it? You know, I'm not quite sure. And then, you know, when I look at all the different options, I decide I'm going to do a dinner. I'm not going to do an appetizer. I'm going to actually make a main course, right? So when you look at how Epicurious has done this, they've done it in a way that is a natural progression for somebody looking for recipes. And they've done it in a lot of different ways. So depending on your approach, you can actually get to the information that you want from different angles. Another example is Kayak. How many of you guys know about Kayak? Man, is this like a dream come true?
It's an awesome site.
I love this site. We do a lot of travel for work, and this is the place that we go when we need to find flights. It's absolutely, I just love this place. This is the place to start. When some of my clients or my colleagues don't like flying on certain airlines. So you can, over on the left-hand nav, you can choose, you know, I don't want to fly United. I don't want to fly Alaska. Or you can say, I only want to fly JetBlue because, you know, I have my air miles with them, or whatever it might be. You can pick and choose. And then you can actually choose things like, you know, say you're flying to Europe and you want to do a red-eye flight. You can actually go to that further down the page and look at the, you want to switch for me? No. You can look at the, you know, choosing the airports and the type of flights when you arrive versus departing. It's the way users would want it. Here's all this data that's out on all of these different airline sites. They've aggregated it. They brought it all together in an easy, simple way to use it. And it's, you know, Web 2.0 savvy fun, so as you're moving the scrolls, it repopulates quickly. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And then from there, you can actually, when you choose that link, it takes you to the airline site, and it's already loaded exactly what you just filtered. That's a great user experience with metadata. Another example is a competitor, and they're approaching it in a different way. They're looking at, you know, whether you're concerned about the speed or the comfort or the ease. What are your priorities? You know, sometimes I just got to get there. It's got to be the speed. I've got to get to that place on time. Other times, maybe I want that extra sleep before I actually have to give my presentation. So I want the comfort. If I'm going to be flying a long haul, I'm going to want to sleep. And so I'm going to look for something that has, you know, more leg room. And they actually will track things like the actual aircraft age, the aircraft size, and they'll actually be able to tell you what the legroom is, even just in economy. It's not like I just have to buy, business class. I can actually figure this out through this site.
Yeah, I love this example whenever people start, kind of dozing off when you talk about metadata. Oh, it's so boring. It's all this back-end stuff. They're using metadata as a competitive advantage. They are saying, we're going to give different information to our users, and that is going to drive them to use our site, and that's going to drive our revenue. So, of course, metadata is not always perfect. How do you know if you got it wrong? The best way is to go and look at what your users are doing. Talk to them. Look at your weblogs. See what they're doing. See how they're losing searches and that sort of thing. Go talk to customer service. If you hear customer service saying things like, "Our customers are just using the wrong keywords," you got to say, they're using the wrong keywords. They're using the keywords that they understand. They're the user. They speak a certain language. They're using the keywords that they would expect that you would have your pages tagged with. That you would expect that metadata to be in there. So that takes us to the next point of tags, of saying, well, okay, what if we were to just solve that by letting our users go and create this metadata for us, right? Nothing new. Certainly tags are all over the place, all the rage right now. And why? Why are tags becoming so popular? Well, one thing is their interfaces are being designed really, really easy to use. Technology is coming into play to where we can do this. I mean, this was really hard to do and to scale to a consumer app for a consumer application years ago. Today, we can do this sorts of thing. They're pretty cheap to implement. Saying that we're not gonna bother trying to fully organize our content and put the metadata in there. We're going to let our users do it for us. Kind of lets them. It kind of reduces some of the costs that you would normally have there. And then the biggest piece is, of course, that it's in their user's language, that the users are telling you, this is how I would describe X, Y, Z.
And there's some ways of correcting your users along the way. This is a delicious library example where as you're typing in, it suggests, so I typed in IN, and it suggested information architecture, insulation, I think, is the other one. So it's making some guesses based on adaptivepath.com. So I've entered in that information, and now it actually knows that with Adaptive Path, then there's information architecture. That because they've done some intelligent stuff in the back end, prepared it for me, and now it's relevant to what I'm typing. So that way all of the tags can kind of come together, and so you don't have information architecture with a space, information architectures, plural. You can actually have, just choose the one that is there, and so it solidifies things for you. Another great example is 43 Things. I was on that site recently, and this just cracked me up. How many of you guys actually want to learn the Thriller? Dance. Come on, raise your hands. Who knows how to do the Thriller? Rock on, man. You need to talk to these guys because there are like 1,400 people on 43 Things that want to learn the Thriller. Now, for me, I feel really bad when I see that one solo guy that wants to do it, right? And so they have this cool feature on 43 Things, report a similar goal. And so I can do that when I see somebody's goal, and I go, oh, you know what? You should talk to these 1,370 other people because you all actually need to, help each other along. And the whole idea with 43 Things is that you share goals and you help each other with your goals and that sort of thing. So it's like, when I saw this, I had to say, report this as a similar one because I really wanted this one person to get to know his other friends.
So on the last couple of slides, you saw the word folksonomy there, right next to tags. Just really quickly, a definition of folksonomy. If you get out of here and somebody says, oh, what'd you learn about? All right, I'll learn about folksonomy. You can impress them. The Wikipedia entry is really correct here. It's a taxonomy, which is a traditional library science term for organizing content, organizing information. If we, instead of having librarians, information architects on the back end organize the information and we let our users do it through tags, you have your folksonomy. So what we're talking about here really isn't anything new. I mean, tags are metadata. They're metadata that our users apply but there's still metadata at the end of the day. So if you already have skill sets, or your team has skill sets on how to deal with metadata, how to make data stores that store metadata appropriately, how to sift through it, how to categorize information, a lot of what you've learned, can be applied to a tag-based interface. That being said, it's also you get some of the problems with tags. Things like the fact that it's great for serendipitous browsing, right? It's great for you to go to a site like Flickr where you want some serendipity. You want to kind of get in there, run a quick search, and hopefully you get back something good. And most likely, because of the volume content on Flickr, you're going to get back something that you're looking for. Let's say I go onto Flickr and I search for Eiffel Tower, and I spell it correctly. I'm going to get maybe 1,000 or so photos back, and that's awesome, and I'm happy that I got 1,000 or so photos. But guess what? I may have missed another 100 or so photos because people tagged the photos incorrectly. They misspelled Eiffel Tower. And maybe there's one nugget in that 100 that I didn't get. With Flickr, the use cases are such that that's probably okay. You're probably okay that you missed out on those 100 or so because 1,000 are representative enough for you to get by. You just needed a photo of the Eiffel Tower. You got that made. But these are problems. Tags have no control. That's where you're giving up. You're giving up vocabulary control. You're giving up the categorization and the structuring to your users. That means that they can be unreliable. They can be inconsistent, and that means that they're not appropriate for every single case. Let's take an application where we need users to be able to come in and search and find medical diseases, or they need to find medical devices, and they need to find maybe some sort of a law case. That information has to be accurate. There's no room for error when people are searching for causes for a certain disease. That information has to go and be populated by experts. There has to be organization structures, metadata applied to medical diseases or to law or to certain areas that is correct. So if you need that absolute, then tags really aren't for you. There's certain places where they're great. They're great for things like photos, like video, where your information is so rich and you can allow a little bit of that lack of control and inaccuracy. They're not great for everything. So with that, it's activity time. Okay, seems like we're slowing down a little bit, so I want to give everybody an opportunity to share any of their great ideas. Has anybody came up with what they think is maybe a unique way to look at a hotel object and a particularly interesting interface that they want to share with the rest of us? Coming up and talk about it. I saw some good stuff out there. Don't be shy. Who wants to share what they worked on?
Somebody, if you guys don't come up, he's going to pick you anyway. So you might as well, you've got some good stuff. Go on up.
There we go. Hold on, let's get you a mic. Go ahead.
Something that I put in my search was to be able to search for stuff that was within a certain distance. So if I was going to stay in Vegas, maybe I'm also open to Reno. So I can specify something within 50 miles. I don't know how far Reno is, but that's my example. Or if I'm looking for attractions that are close by, then I might specify surrounding attractions within 10 miles and then check mark whether it's a casino, theater, etc. That's one thing.
Right, another one.
We all had a lot of fun going through back and forth on concepts. And another approach that I took with mine, using the same data, was to actually, I took a themed approach where the first thing they're actually doing is from the top of the menu, there is a series of icons representing the different themes that are supported by this boutique hotel system. And then as you go through, you actually build out a visual representation of what the experience is that you're building. So the room starts out empty. You start adding 1, 2 beds, The view outside is going to be either the beach where you've chosen or in the Napa Valley. If you've chosen to go to the Napa Valley, for instance, if they have this kind of a winery look and feel to their hotel, that's what gets applied to your room. So you're actually customizing the experience that you'll be having at your boutique hotel.
Great. Did anyone try anything interesting defining an attribute about location? Did anyone have, like, say, multiple location attributes to say, you know, a regional versus an address, things of that sort?
This work? Okay. One of the attributes that I've seen popular with a lot of bed and breakfast, for example, like a certain hotel location will have both skiing, for example, in Whistler, and they'll also have mountain biking. So they're basically almost defining the type of bed and breakfast that it is.
Right. What are the activities that you're going to do? What is the certain type of person that they're attracting? You know, they're attracting somebody who's young and youthful and fit and, you know, no kids and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it could also go as far as like urban versus non-urban bed and breakfast located near San Francisco as opposed to something that's located in Napa Valley.
What are some other attributes that people pulled out that are specific to a boutique hotel that, you know, maybe a Sheraton or a Marriott would never even contemplate? What else did people kind of pull out in that way that they think is interesting? There you go. Yep, got two.
Yeah, if they're genuinely small accommodation places, then maybe the proprietor's interests.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll stop there. Sorry.
Okay. Here. These guys had a couple. So what'd you have?
A boutique hotel, they're always interested in who is the designer and what does the interior look like and who's been, probably as a testimonial, been over there, a famous person, things like this, and the histories and the hotel itself can tell.
Yeah, maybe the hotel itself used to be like an old, you know, meat market or something, and it was converted, and it still has some of that character with it, you know, and then it has a Frank Lloyd Wright type of feel or something of that sort. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Anybody else have? Okay.
We came up with a couple attributes, especially since it was California. We thought carbon footprint might be an interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. To search by. The architecture is Art Deco or whatever, and is it family owned or is it a chain? That sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I think what's great about those examples, especially the carbon footprint, is similar to the avocado that Kim was talking about. I mean, you know, maybe if you go to some town, you know, in the middle of Nebraska where they have one type of avocado only, you know, and that's what their market wants, you describe it as it's an avocado. But in Berkeley, people want more than that, and so they know it's a competitive advantage versus the big grocery store that's down the street that just calls it an avocado. They can get into that niche. You know, people who go to Whole Foods are looking for that sort of information. So what you pulled out there could potentially make State California, more competitive in the marketplace because people who want to search by carbon footprint know that that's the only place they can go and do that. Anybody else try something interesting they want to share with the group? Right there.
We talked about that this is not the hotel so much, but we talked about the profiles of the people staying in the hotel.
Okay.
So if you can collect some data on that and show it to people.
So how do you describe the profile of a person?
Activities they're interested in.
Okay.
Maybe average age of adults.
Okay.
Whether they're families.
Okay. Do you concern about privacy with that?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, you would need to have a certain level of, you don't want to identify individuals, but...
Sure. But you think that there would be enough use and for people that they would want to be able to give up that information because they, maybe that would be a better experience for searching for, okay.
Hopefully.
Others like me, give me a hotel that other people like me can, also enjoy. Oh, another one over here. Go. She's got you.
One of the controls that I really like that I think are relevant to the discussion is I've heard described as an equalizer, where you have the listing of tags that we're all talking about, and in this context, the hotels, when you move the equalizer left or right, you actually have the priorities coming up further, and so like what you want tends to bubble up to the top, and it's interactive.
Can we get a video shot of this? It's not actually projecting either.
But it creates something that's interactive and fun, but also instead of just clicking on something and completely changing the face of what you're looking at, it actually allows you to really, I guess, interact and create your own sort of experience.
Yeah, I mean, just because it's metadata and it may seem boring to somebody doesn't mean it has to be a checkbox or a radio button. Figure out how to bubble that up and let the users kind of play with it and make it more of a game, kind of like Kayak or kind of like that. Did anyone else identify an attribute of their hotel that would be applicable to expose out to tagging, that the users would talk to? We talked a little bit about profiles. That might be something where people can self-identify as a profile. Okay, we got another one over there.
We was looking at this particular company, and since they do like boutique hotels,
yeah,
we was looking at mood of the person. So if they want a romantic getaway, then it'll pull up all the hotels that will give them that.
Okay.
Versus if someone wanted to do something sports related, for
Sure.
instance.
Well, and then something like mood is something that maybe you can't guess ahead of time. What are the valid, attributes of mood? So that would be a great one for tagging. Let people just kind of type in whatever they want to describe it, to describe that hotel. Anybody else find an interesting tag interface for their hotel? One more? Oh, there we go.
It's kind of an extension of the personalization that we've talked about. Love the sliders. We kind of said it was maybe activity-based, or we talked about all these data points, and we got so many of them, and no one wants a list where there's 50 things to enter. So to maybe express your intent up front and to say, I'm looking for a romantic getaway, I'm looking for more of an active vacation, to filter what they can search on. Not limit, you can always go back to the larger view, but just to say, in our experience, if this is what you're looking for, these are the things that might be important to you. You can extend that with the sliders, let them increase priority, or even set up a custom view and say, when I come to your site, I want you to remember all this stuff about me and bring it up next time. And this is how I define an active vacation. So.
Great. Well, we're about out of time, so I'll say, that, are there any other questions anyone wants to throw out? Any comments generally about this whole practice?
I've just got a question about tagging, and in particular, when you look at this hotel example, where you're a website that's serving assumed paid customers,
yeah,
and you start looking at tagging as a piece of metadata, and that other people are submitting those tags. Do you believe in moderated tagging or something that controls that? Of course, to keep somehow you've got paying customers here,
yeah,
that represent these hotels, but yet. I really do believe in the power of the people of being able to come in and tag that and adding real value to help other people.
In general, I would say, you said, what do I believe? I would say I would believe that tagging must be free. Tagging works if you don't put moderation, if you don't put those sorts of controls on it. Do things like Delicious does, the autocomplete, the type ahead, try and train people to use similar terms, because that's probably the worst part of it, is somebody types in a phrase one way and somebody types it in slightly different, maybe plural or not. But really, if you feel like you can't trust your users without moderation, maybe you really need to rethink, is tagging right for you? Maybe it's not, but doing kind of tagging but not all the way is really, it's really hard to justify that it's worth that cost, that it's worth your time doing moderation, it's worth, limiting what your users can and can't do. It's tough. And with that, we're out of time. So I appreciate everybody for coming. We have one more session in about 15 minutes. We're going to talk to you all about these different design methods that you can use to make great user experiences and walk you through activities on how you can best pick yours.